You're listening to The Basketball Show with your host, Paul Sir, on your home for hoops. Sports 1440.
Welcome back to The Basketball Show. We had a little technical difficulty with the music intro, but we're happy to have you back, and we're going to be talking FIBA 3x3 basketball now. FIBA 3x3, as people may or may not know, has been a heavy emphasis on the basketball show for the past couple of years. I personally have been involved in the sport for a long, long time, and we've hosted some of the great events in North America here in Edmonton, and we certainly will be doing the same as the year goes on. We'll be telling you more about that later. But we're going to talk about FIBA 3x3 because of the significance that Edmonton has had in the development of 3x3, not just in Canada, but around the world, with two of the great 3x3 players globally from Edmonton here. And one of them is in the studio right now. That's Steve Sir. Steve, glad to have you here.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
And also Michelle Plouffe, who is with us on her phone. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing great. Now, Steve and Michelle, before we get going, though, we have two other special guests in the studio. They are the daughters of Steve, my granddaughters.
Oh!
We have Isabel and Lila, sir, with us right now. And I'm going to ask them a question before we dive into 3x3 with Michelle and Steve. Isabel, good morning.
Morning.
Isabel, you're a junior high student in the city here. You have had the opportunity, along with your sister and mom and dad, to travel really around the world to watch your dad play. What's the favorite city that you've been to? What's your favorite city you've been to watch your dad play 3x3?
Well, last year we went to Europe and we went to a few cities, but probably Prague. That was pretty interesting.
Just really a beautiful city, isn't it?
Yeah, we got to see lots of cool monuments and all the interesting stuff.
That's wonderful. So Izzy has the vote for Prague. Now, Lila, what's your favorite city?
Mongolia. Ulaanbaatar.
Ulaanbaatar. Now, that's the capital of Mongolia, right?
Yeah.
What was it about Ulaanbaatar that you liked?
Well, when the Mongolians played, everyone cheered for them, so that felt nice.
That was very exciting. Okay, well, Isabel and Lila, thank you so much for being here on the show today. Now we're going to jump over to your dad and to Michelle. So, Michelle, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to start with you personally. You had a tough year from the standpoint of you were battling through a serious knee injury recovery process throughout the entire season. Talk about what that journey was like for you personally.
Yeah, that was, first of all, those were great answers, girls. Wish I was in the studio with you. I'm missing out for sure. But yeah, it was a tough year, physically, mentally, just going through the ACL rehab. But really, honestly, it was a challenge that I, met with not excitement. That's a weird thing to say, but maybe more curiosity of just what it was like. I just had so many teammates who have torn their ACLs and watched them come back. So, unfortunately, I was the one to go down this time, but it was a challenge just to be constantly just uncomfortable, monitoring pain, monitoring swelling, because obviously I was trying to be at the best, in the best condition I could for my team. And obviously during an intense summer like we had, it was for sure tough just to constantly be, hooked up to machines and getting treatment and all that kind of stuff. So definitely when the season ended, I was happy about it. But it was a grind for sure. I'm just so grateful for all the support I had from staff to my surgeon and who I was working with, Chris Davey and Jared Bartnert. I worked with very closely to get me back to be able to be on the court so quickly, relatively. So I'm super grateful for the experience as a whole. Honestly, I think I learned a lot and grew a lot, and you don't always get to perform at your peak at the right time. Sometimes it doesn't work out like that, but I am also just grateful to be able to have qualified with the team and then to have played in Paris. So that was definitely dream come true there.
Well, injuries are always the X factor, and I think you've think you've clearly laid out, Michelle, what that really can mean in terms of real terms of how your season unfolds. Steve, Michelle used a word, grind. Talk about in the 3x3 world, if you're on the world tour, which is the tour for men, for women, it's called the Women's Series. But if you're on the world tour, talk about that, the grind factor in what you have to really be prepared for mentally and physically.
It's a very demanding sport. If you just took the sport in and of itself, very physical, very fast paced. It's played outdoors in most cases, so you're also dealing with some things that are out of your control, whether it's a nice day, hot, rainy, muggy. That stuff factors in. Then there's the other things on top of it. It is a tour, so you're going city to city, country to country. There's a lot of cool things about that. You see some interesting places, you go to some interesting places, but it's a lot of travel when you tally it up over the course of an entire season. It starts to wear on your body. You're usually only in these places for these tournaments for a couple of days maximum, so you're not ever really able to settle in somewhere and get your feet and your bearings. You're having to get there, rest, eat, scout, do whatever you need to do to get on track, and then you're playing almost just as quick as you arrived. It's a lot of fun, but Michelle used the proper word. It is a grind, and you have to know that going in physically and mentally, there's a lot of preparation that goes into this stuff. You don't just show up to the tournaments and then say, now I'm going to focus up and now I'm going to be ready to go. There's the prep that leads to it. There's the evaluation that happens after it. And then in certain cases, you might be on the road right after that tournament and be in a new location, having to take what you just did and try and get a little bit better. If you're a little banged up, you might not have a lot of recovery time until you're playing. And once the next tournament starts, that's the way it goes. No one's going to be all that interested on whether or not they had a good result last weekend or a tough result last weekend. So it's very much one foot in front of the other, taking the lessons that you need to learn and trying to get better and progress as the tour goes on.
You're listening to the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. I'm your host, Paul Sir, along with producer Ryan Reed. We have Isabel and Lila Sir, along with their father, Steve Sir, in the studio, and on the phone with us, we have Michelle Plouffe. Now, Michelle, what a year. The Olympics, many stops on the Women's Series tour, a gold medal in the AmeriCup. Quite the accomplishments. But let's dive into the Olympics. The team finished fourth. Now that you've had some time and distance from that finish, what are your feelings and your reflections on the team's performance in Paris?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a great accomplishment to get there, but we also did have some high hopes in terms of what we could do when we were in Paris. So there's still disappointment. I mean, fourth is a tough place to finish. You're just inches away from the podium. So that was super tough. Pretty devastating, right after. But we actually had to go like 4 days later after we got home from Paris. We went to Saskatoon for a Women's Series stop. So I think that was, for me personally, I was not looking forward to going. I mean, ideally, it's the victory lap and you come home with a medal and all is well. But physically, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Just the tournament in of itself is just outrageous. And then handling the knee stuff was also crazy. So physically, mentally was not super prepared going into that, but also at the same time, it just forced us to move on in a way. Not to just pretend like we're not disappointed, but just to actually physically, okay, now you have to prepare for something else. And yeah, it's not the same preparation as the Olympics, but it just forced me at least to, just move on. Okay, life goes on, everything goes on. It's really tough to finish off an Olympic experience like that. But there's a lot to be, grateful for. And I think what I'm most proud of our team for is just like how we handled everything. There was some, controversy in our eyes on how games go. But I think overall how we handled ourselves was, nothing to hang our heads about. And yeah, it's tough. Like for me, looking forward, I'm like, ooh, that was a lot. That was a lot to do that, and it wasn't my first Olympics. First with 3x3, which was a whole different ball game. I think meant a lot more to me personally. But yeah, definitely proud of our team. Fourth in the world is not too shabby. I'm not at the point yet where I'm like, yeah, we were so close. I'm so motivated to do it again. Paige, like the next day was like LA 28. And I was like, Paige, I need like at least a year. Okay. Don't ask me that.
Michelle's referring to her teammate, Paige Croson from Lethbridge, who had that unbridled enthusiasm for LA in 2028. So, Steve, you have an interesting, maybe one of the more unique positions in the world, in that you play for the Ulaanbaatar team in Mongolia, but you're also the national team coach for the men and women in Mongolia, and you had to prepare your teams for the different cups, Asia Cup, World Cup, also though for the Olympic qualifying tournament. And Michelle's describing a big heartbreak in finishing fourth. And Michelle, we'll come back. I have one more question about the Olympics. We'll come back to that. But I'm going to go to Steve right now on this. Talk about the situation you faced when the Mongolian team that you were coaching were in the Olympic qualifying tournament.
Heartbreak would probably be the word you would use as well. Qualifying for the Olympics this year was the focus right out of the gate for a lot of countries. Excuse me. So they had 3 qualifiers, one in Hong Kong, one in Japan, one in Hungary. And the last one provided 3 spots to the top 3 finishers. Our Mongolian team out of the gate played very well. We beat Belgium, we beat Poland, we beat Japan, we beat Israel, and that brought us to the semifinal against France. Excuse me. And we had a little something happen along the way where one of our players was unable to play in the game against France. So we were down to 3 players. One of the unique things about playing in Hungary was, for whatever reason, it's a place where a lot of Mongolians live. And Mongolian basketball fans are quite unique. There's not a storied history of basketball in the country, but they're extremely enthusiastic for the sport. So there were stories that we heard throughout this tournament in Debrecen about where everybody came from, 5 hours away, 8 hours away, 10 hours away. They just jumped in the car, and when they saw that our Mongolian teams were playing, it was just, we're going to get to Debrecen and we'll figure the rest out later. Multiple people had said, we're just sleeping in our car and we're just waiting for the games. So we get down to playing France. It felt like, and I do think it was probably, the whole fan section was Mongolians. There was Mongolian flags. It was loud. It was like playing a home game. And our guys came right out of the gate and were playing fantastic. We were up, I believe, as the game got down to the finish, we were up 17-13. And you never want to be presumptuous in sport, but my assistant coach and then Craig Wilson, who owns Pivotal Physiotherapy here, that was brought as the Mongolian national team physiotherapist, we all kind of looked at each other and we were ready to say, like, are we actually going to do this? Are we actually going to pull this off with 3 guys against France that has all the pressure in the world to qualify because the Olympics are in Paris? But we didn't say it because the second someone was about to open their mouth, I said, don't jinx it. Shh, everybody be quiet. And then, it's what 3x3 is in a nutshell. It's a wild sport. It changes on a dime. And that's exactly what happened. It went to overtime. France hit some big shots. Our guys were playing with their hearts on their sleeve, and France hit a 2 in overtime, and they beat us. Again, 3x3. Not a lot of time to feel sorry for yourself. Nobody's really interested in what just happened because there's probably going to be something that happens next. Poland loses to Lithuania. So France qualifies, Lithuania qualifies. We're playing Poland in under an hour for the last and final spot to the Paris Olympics. Poland played after us against Lithuania. So they had a 20-minute break. And it's really difficult in 3x3 to play, stop just long enough to tighten up, just long enough to think about it, and have to jump back on the court. And sometimes it happens to you. Not all the time, but sometimes. I'm sure Michelle's had those situations too, where you play, you're warm, and it's like, oh man, let's just run it back right now. Well, we can't, we got to wait. And then you just tighten up just a little, you cool off just a little, and you're back on the court. So my thing to the guys was, hey, we got 3 guys again. We don't have our 4th player coming back. So this is our 2nd game in a row with just 3. And I said to them, guys, first 3 minutes, you can jump on them. They're not going to be ready. Their heads are still going to be in the Lithuanian game. Believe 100%. Go do the impossible. And our Mongolian guys did that exact same thing again. We were up 11-4. All heart, all grit, just out-toughen these guys. And then there was a tough foul where one of the Polish guys hit a 2, got fouled, awful call, and the Polish guy goes to the line and hits 2 free throws. So now it's a 4-point play, and instead of being up 7, we're up 4, and we're thinking about it. And same thing, came down to the end. It goes to overtime. 2nd game in a row, we're playing with 3 to go overtime. Poland has the ball to start. They dump it down. They do a little uphill rub. Guy comes across. This is a dude that if you locked him in the gym, he wouldn't make this shot the rest of his life. And he made it. And he banked it off the top, from the top, straight away, right off the glass, and he banked it. And our guys just crumpled off the floor. And it was still, now even talking about it, it's one of the most devastating moments I've witnessed as a basketball person, not as a player, where you felt so close to achieving something that was the mountaintop. The Olympics are the mountaintop. This would have been the first men's team ever from the country of Mongolia to qualify for a team sport to go to the Olympics. What this would have meant for the country beyond the game was monumental. And for the guys who battled the way that they did, what they did to get there was inspiring, to say the least. But to get to that point and come within an inch of doing it, considering the circumstance, 1 was incredible to witness, but 2 was just like a gut punch doesn't do it credit. The emotion after the game, once it had all settled in, was so hard for everyone to come to grips with, and yet also have this incredible sense and feeling of pride to have even put yourself in a position to be there in the first place. So we didn't qualify. It was the story of the tournament outside of, I think, the teams that did. Like Canada qualified. The Canadian girls, if I'm not mistaken, qualified right after us. And you're so happy for the people that did, everybody, because to get to that point, everyone sacrificed, everyone pushed, everyone fought, everyone had adversity. Like Michelle mentioned, injuries, setbacks, all these things. So you feel an overwhelming sense of pride for the people who have walked a similar road and did it. But then you also have this just devastating feeling of how do you pick people up and how do you try and find some sort of way to make this positive when all everybody feels is just hurt. And that was a tough night. There was a lot of blank stares that night. There was a lot of feeling of pain. There was a lot of emotion from a group of guys that, sports-wise don't show a lot of emotion. That's just not part of their sports culture. It was a huge learning experience for me. It was a wonderful thing where if there was ever a thing where that draws you closer to people, success obviously does that, but also coming up just short like that does that as well. So honestly, since it's happened, that happened back in May, if I'm not mistaken. And I've thought about it every day since. It always comes up in some weird way where you just think about, oh man, if we had just made one little thing here, if we had done one little thing there, if Zamowski for Poland had remembered who he was and just bricked that shot, it would have been it would have been Mongolia at the Olympics. And when we watched the Olympics in July, same thing. A great deal of pride for the sport and for the people that made it there because you knew the road that they took. But man, it would have been. It's difficult to put into words what it would have been, considering how it was to then have the teams moving into Paris.
Michelle, I have a favor to ask you. Mm-hmm. Could you hang on? We're going to go. If we go to a break right now, could you hang on, and then we'll continue this conversation into the next segment?
All right.
Okay. It'll be about 4 or 5 minutes. Then we'll come right back and we'll go right to you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. You're listening to the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. I'm your host, Paul Sir, along with Ryan Reed, Michelle Plouffe, Steve Sir. We'll be back right after the break here on this great Saturday morning, Talking Hoops. Welcome back to the Basketball Show, Sports 1440. I'm your host, Paul Sir. Ryan Reed, Isabella, and Lila in the studio making things work. Welcoming Michelle Plouffe and Steve Sir back. Michelle, we just listened to Steve's the disappointment his team faced after the fourth place finish in the Olympics. You guys both have defined, I think, how tough the sport is. But talk about what has drawn you into the 3x3 world, Michelle, and why you and your sister Catherine chose to go down the path of 3x3.
Yeah, that's been a journey, but I think it was just great timing as well. I was just also ready to be done with the 5-on-5 team, and so I saw Steve playing 3x3 actually on the World Tour. And I don't know if we had conversations about it, but Paige had actually called me up just shortly after the summer, my last summer with the team. Catherine had actually got cut that summer, but I already had decided that was going to be my last go around.
And when you say the team, you're speaking of the Canada basketball national team, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, yep, the 5-on-5 national team. So, had a conversation with her, and we decided Catherine was going to be our third teammate. And
not a bad pickup.
Yeah, I feel like the best possible. And so that was kind of the start, but I've just really enjoyed a lot about the game. I think the game itself has been super fun to play, honestly. Like, it's physical, yes, it's fast, there's a lot of action. And for me personally, I like that I'm able to use everything in my arsenal. I can play, maximize my game in a sense. So that's been really cool. Just because 5-on-5, the nature of it is you have a role to play, and sometimes that's not using all your capabilities. So for me, and I think all my teammates, really, it's just given us an opportunity to, play more freely, I would say. And I just love the vibe on tour. Like, it's so much different from 5-on-5. Like, there's more camaraderie, the ambiance, the fans, like the environments that 3x3 is played in. The host cities, we're playing outdoors, we're playing in squares, we're playing in malls. It's really unique, and I think it's just created a very cool culture around the game of people have started to watch who, don't usually watch basketball at all because it's palatable for fans too. It's short games. There's a lot of action. It's very exciting. It's a very emotional game to play as a player. It's hard to not get wrapped up in that just because of the intensity and because it's so hard physically. Your brain is functioning, I don't think, at full capacity, but just all these things go into such a unique experience. And so it's just been a lot of fun. And it's been fun and a challenge, obviously, to build something from the ground up, essentially, starting where we did in 2019, and to see us get to the Olympics, which was our initial goal of getting Canada to the Olympics for 3x3, was it's such a journey. And I think the journey, there was success throughout the journey, and it wasn't a result at the end that was going to make or break it. I think there was value in it the whole way through, and we really just stood on principles and values the way we did what we did, who we brought in, who we were able to play with, just the culture we were able to create with our team and the program. I'm really proud of that we were able to create that, because the culture is created. It's not something you just snap your fingers and it exists. So we've just tried really hard to build that, and hopefully it's maintained long after we're gone. But I think the whole experience has been just a growth opportunity in so many ways, wearing so many different hats, and just to see the growth of the game in Canada, people talking about 3x3. Obviously, it was around on the men's side with Steve and the guys, years before we started. But to see now, girls wanting to play, and even in the city, like 3x3 has grown in many different ways, and to have that as an opportunity and a pathway for players to play for their country, I think is amazing. So it's been a great experience overall, and a journey that's just definitely been worth it.
Very well said. Very well quantified, I think, Michelle, because you're talking about a sport when you say pioneering. That literally is the case. And Steve, jumping to you, I've got a final question I'm going to ask you, then I'm going to ask you, Catherine. Michelle. See, I still have a hard time telling you and your sister apart. I can't even call you the right name, and you're on the phone, Michelle. So my apologies. Steve, here's what I'm going to ask you is what's next for 3x3? The crowds in Paris were unbelievable. Anybody that watched the games when they were on TV during the Olympics, but Michelle, you were there. The crowds were bursting at the seams. The television numbers in the European nations were off the charts. I think it was something like 8 million people in Germany were watching the gold medal game. 10 million people were watching the Spanish team. So, these are big, big numbers. So, but Steve, what's next? What does 3x3 globally have to do, and what do they have to do in Canada to start really having the game, I think, take advantage of what's been built so far?
The next cycle will be interesting. There was what seemed to clearly be 3x3's arrival. They had played 3x3 at the Olympics in Tokyo, but because of the difficulties with COVID and everything that was happening there, it was hard to actually say this is really a Olympic debut without people in the stands, without the ability to actually watch it live. And it seemed like, even just on TV, that the atmosphere was very unique and special. I imagine Michelle would attest to this better than anybody. That if it looked that great on TV, it was probably 10 times what it was live and in person. That's a great opportunity for 3x3, a great springboard to jump off of. Hey, this is a fun sport. It's awesome to watch. It's interactive. It's exciting. There's good players in it. It's not like it's this completely different class of sport. It's basketball, but it's not basketball. You have to have a unique combination of athletes on a team to be a successful 3x3 squad country at an Olympic level. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Like Michelle said, you go to certain venues and it's awesome. It's packed. It's engaged. You might go play in a tournament in China and there's 40 people there and no one's paying attention. So like this, there are those parts of the sport where you have to enjoy the wonderful moments, where it's a blast and a lot of fun. And then, as we mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, it's a grind. It's not always going to be that way. You're going to go to some tournament and I don't even really know where, and no one will have any idea who you are, and they're just hoping that maybe a local guy will play well enough to come back for another game. I hope that on a global scale, they take this and they continue to grow it, promote it, attract better players, attract more countries, make it accessible on both men's and women's sides for teams to play more, to be on tour on the women's and men's side more, so that you get more variety. One of the things you run into on the men's side is there does usually get to be, good teams are obviously going to be the ones that are playing at the end, but it would be nice to see different styles from different countries more. I don't know how you do that, but variety is always good as long as the competition continues to move up and it continues to remain at a high level. For Canada, continuing to pay attention to the sport. We talked about this with our guys when we were at the AmeriCup. When you go back to your communities, you have to take the bull by the horns a little bit here and be an ambassador for this. Not everyone's going to know exactly what went into it. They're going to admire that you played for Canada. They're going to love that you won a medal, but you're going to have to encourage guys of, let's get in the gym and play it. You have to watch it. You have to learn the nuances of it. It takes a lot of self-responsibility with 3x3 in order to continue to promote and grow it. Like Michelle said, we had our good Canadian group before. Guys went on to different things. I remained in the sport, but clearly the girls took the next big step because they formed the best team in the world on the women's side, and they've continued to drive that forward. That's going to help the sport, of course, too. But the more people play it, see it, Edmonton continues to be a leader with showing events and showing the quality of the sport and what it can do. But I think, as we get closer towards LA in the next 4 years, hopefully just more and more people continue to be attracted to it, because if you play it, you're going to enjoy it. I've never heard anybody come out of a 3x3 game and not say like, oh man, I'm really tired. That's usually the first. But two, they always say that was a lot of fun. And I think that's ultimately what could attract more and more recreational players, weekend warriors, but also professionals too, where they come into this and say like, I really like this. I want to be good at it. So hopefully that continues to happen in a natural way, but then also too, the ambassadors for the sport continue to encourage and push people towards it as well.
Michelle, yourself, what reflections? What's next for 3x3?
Oh, wow. I don't know, Paul. Sorry.
That's okay.
She knows.
Yeah, I don't know what's next. I hopefully want to see it grow. I hopefully that there's a spirit of, in the community and with FIBA 3x3 of just wanting to make it better and better. Because I think, there's always room for improvement, and that's not a knock on how far it's come or where we're at. But, I think there's always room for improvement if we want it to grow, if we want it to, keep growing globally and keep attracting the players that are here as well. Like, I think to keep players who have been around, to keep them wanting to come back is for there to be growth. For me, that's what I want to see. I don't want to stick around if we're like, oh yeah, we've made it and this is how it's going to be for the rest of forever. I want to, be around to help it grow. And if there's that spirit of, wanting to improve in all different aspects, but I think that's a big thing to attract new players and to keep players in is if there is that, desire to move things forward. And I think obviously in Canada, there's lots of room for growth. Just in terms of, awareness of getting kids plugged in, getting them opportunities to try 3x3, but also getting, players who are further in their career opportunities to try 3x3 because, we have a generation of college, university players who, have been playing 5-on-5, and whether they want to pursue 5-on-5 internationally or nationally, or they could, try 3x3. I think there's a lot of players whose game would fit the 3x3 style just because, it's not always the best roster on paper that's going to, outperform everyone else at a 3x3 tournament. We've seen that time and time again. It's the teams who have camaraderie, who have consistency, who have chemistry on the court, who are able to do some pretty fun things, which is what I love about 3x3 as well. We'll see what happens in the future. That's what I got to say about that.
Well, very well put. And so I think what you both have said really, I think, sets the table for what's next for 3x3. And that is getting more and more people to try it. I've got this catchphrase of make it part of the basketball ecosystem. Get people to think that they can play 5-on-5 or 3x3 when they're playing basketball. And the work that's been done, the dedication that both of you have put into this sport is critical in laying the foundation and creating a pathway, really, for people to start playing the game. Steve, sir, thanks so much for being in here and bringing your beautiful daughters with you. Michelle Plouffe, thanks so much for joining us today here on the Basketball Show, and we look forward to having you on again in the future.
Thanks for having
Paul.
us.
Thanks for having me.
Michelle Plouffe, Steve Sir, joining us here on the Basketball Show, here on our inaugural new season, first episode that we are getting going. So we're going to jump right now to something we are going to be doing every week, calling 3 from Deep, where Ryan and I talk about 3 different topics that we think are really significant in the basketball world. And Ryan, let's start out with the NBA. You are, for whatever reason, a diehard fan of the Sacramento Kings, and they're on a 6-game winning streak. Just went into Boston and defeated the Celtics. Really good performance. Tell us about why you're so passionate about Sacramento, number one. But number two, what is it that's happened to the Kings that they've rattled off 6 consecutive wins?
So my reason for liking the Kings is actually maybe somewhat random. When I was younger, I played the video game NBA 2K, and I was drafted by the Kings in 2K like 13 or 14. Yeah, I know, it was big. Yeah. And I decided to like them, and I also liked Kentucky, the college before that too. So I was a big DeMarcus Cousins fan. I liked Eric Bledsoe and those guys like that too. So when DeMarcus Cousins was drafted by the Kings, he started playing well for the Kings. It kind of sealed the deal for me. So with DeMarcus Cousins, with the Kentucky, and now they still have a lot of Kentucky guys, Malik Monk, Trey Lyles, De'Aaron Fox. They still have a lot of that blue blood in them. So it makes it easier for me to cheer for them, even through the struggles that were the last couple decades, honestly, by conscious life.
Yes.
But that's why I picked them anyways. Yeah, you mentioned it. They went into Boston, the defending champs, beat them handily, I might add. Lots of great performances. Domantas Sabonis, 23 and 28. That sounds, speaking of video games, there you go, right there.
Ridiculous numbers.
Resurgence of Keon Ellis. He didn't get a lot of PT under Mike Brown, rather. And with Doug Christie, I guess he's kind of like a player's coach. I was talking to you about this before the show, but there's kind of a honeymoon phase with the coach, so I'm not going to raise the banner yet exactly. I'm still going to let it settle a bit. We're going to go through a losing streak. We're going to lose a couple of games here and there, and then we'll kind of decide if it's worth moving out with Christie. But right now, it's hard not to appreciate right now, especially as we mentioned, Kings fans. It's been a little while.
Well, I wouldn't put the Sacramento Kings in that category this year of surprise teams quite yet. If the winning streak continues, I think that a case could be made. It's just really good to see the Kings playing well, and I'm particularly thrilled because DeMar DeRozan's there, and I'm a big fan of DeRozan just as a person, and to see him in his mid-30s continuing to have success, but seemingly settling in and being comfortable in Sacramento, that's great to see. I'm a huge fan of Sabonis. I've seen him play. He just comes to work every night, and this guy is a dog. He gets after it. Every night. You're going to have to beat him. He will not beat himself. His effort is phenomenal. So good to see. But as we talked about with Jack Armstrong, as we talked about with Ben Golliver, the surprises this year in the NBA have been many. Cavs, close to his historical numbers in terms of what their record would be 37 games into the season. The Thunder, clearly the 2 best teams to this point, and it's a long season. We're not even at the halfway mark of the marathon. But the Cavs and the Thunder have been the class of the league so far. And both teams, as Ben Golliver shared, have something called chemistry. Michelle talked about it. Steve talked about it in 3x3. In professional sport, in sport in general, when you find chemistry, which is something that you can't bottle, you can't manufacture, you work hard and you find. But when you find that, you don't need the big 3. You don't need LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh to be threatening for a tournament. You don't need Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry to be a threat to win the championship. You can be like the Denver Nuggets were, with the best player in the game, but then a bunch of other guys that work around him. That's certainly what's going on in Oklahoma City and in Cleveland as well. Houston Rockets, same thing. Who'd have thunk? Houston has been really struggling. New coach, a couple of players are really coming into their own. You see the ex-Raptor Freddie VanVleet having a nice role there and being part of
making lots of money.
Making lots of money. Dylan Brooks, Canadian, down there doing a great job. So, the NBA has been full of pleasant surprises this year. Let's talk a little bit about the local scene. Recently, we learned of the passing of a legend I don't want to put it that way. We learned about the passing recently of Brian Anstice. Brian, you can call Brian bigger than life in many respects. Brian Anstice, he and his wife Darlene started the Strathcona Basketball Association many, many years ago and have been running it ever since. Brian's served on innumerable boards, Alberta Basketball Board, the Edmonton Youth Basketball Association, in the executive. Tireless worker, also in football. Brian heavily involved in football as well. But Brian was also the head coach at King's University here in Edmonton. Now, if you know the history of King's University and their women's basketball program, and I'm not in any way trying to be derogatory towards their pathway, they are, let's just say they've not been a powerhouse for many, many, many years. They've had some really good players over the years, but what Brian did was craft them into a contender that in his last year went to the national tournament. Unheard of, unthinkable. I'll use that term. Unthinkable not that long ago. And the way Brian does it is he builds culture, chemistry, and trust. Works hard, treats the players like they're valuable, because that's how Brian was. Brian, if you met Brian, when you were talking to Brian, you knew you were valued. He was a man who absolutely walked the walk in life, trying to make people's lives better and trying to make the world better. Brian battled cancer for nearly 10 years. And I'll never forget when my wife and I, Sandra and I, went to a walk to raise money for cancer out in Sherwood Park, right after Brian had learned that he had the same cancer that had taken the life of another basketball community member, Lanny White, who was a longtime official in the in Edmonton in the university level, outstanding official, but a great human being, but a very rare form of cancer. And Brian contracted the same form of cancer. And I remember going to this event, and afterwards Brian got up and spoke, and his opening line was, "You know what? I feel sorry for cancer because I'm going to kick its butt." And that man, his family, his community, all rallied together to kick cancer's butt. And I'll tell you, he battled and battled and battled all along the way, raising money for cancer research, trying to help and benefit others. Brian Anstice is going to be greatly missed by his beautiful family, of course, but by the community at large. And he touched so many lives in our community. You talk about making the world better. Our world is better. Our city, our community is better because of the contribution of Brian Anstice. So we will miss you, Brian, and we are just grateful that you have been in our community and around. Now, talking a little bit more about basketball in the community, too, over the next weeks, we're going to be delving into how kids learn how to play. We're going to be talking about the youth basketball associations. We're going to be talking about the school programs. I've got some exciting announcements about 3x3 tournaments that are going to be held in schools, along with all the 5-on-5 basketball that's being played. We're also going to dive into prep schools. We're going to dive into college and university opportunities. And what we're going to try to do is, I think, frame what basketball is like in 2025 for young people, but for people of all ages. So I'm really looking forward as time goes on that we can share this with you, because basketball has grown, as everyone knows, so very much. But along with opportunity, there comes landmines along the way too. So there's things I think people really, it would be valuable for them to look at the landscape and understand better. And we look forward to talking about that here on the basketball show. Steve is still with us. Steve, I'm going to jump back to Brian. You knew Brian Anstice. Talk about your thoughts about Brian.
I did know Brian. I got to know him through his daughter playing at Concordia, Jordan.
All Canadian at Concordia.
Really good player. And Jordan was at Concordia the same time that you were coaching, and my brothers were playing there. And as a result of that, Brian was around. And I always really liked talking with Brian. I didn't really have anything going for that relationship other than we just kind of saw each other at a game or at the gym and talked for 5 minutes. And it was just those pleasant daily small interactions that kind of build up over time. But Brian was always pleasant. I always really enjoyed talking to him about toughness and shooting and how that's always so important no matter what level you're at, and being committed to the game. Like, we'd have those little passing conversations. It really connected us. He asked me to do a shooting clinic with him and Jordan. I believe it was in 2016 because Phil Allen actually came to that shooting clinic not long before he passed. And that gave me a better chance to get to know Brian. We spent some extended hours around each other. And same thing, just really enjoyed talking with him. You can always tell when someone really cares about the game as opposed to like, I like being in the gym. Yeah, I like being around it. It makes me feel a certain way. Brian was going to be around it no matter what. And you can always tell people that just need to be around basketball. They feel better when they're around a sport. Like you said, Brian was big in football as well. So he liked to be involved. But not just be involved, he really enjoyed seeing other people enjoy it as well. He worked to promote what sport could do for others and how it can inspire, how it can teach, how it can toughen, all those things. Because like you said, he made a program that has never really been known to be a big basketball program into a very competitive one. That takes a lot of work, not obviously just in the recruiting aspect, but the little things every day that don't get celebrated on social media and don't get promoted all the time, the little things that are just for the players and for him as the coach. Brian's going to be really missed. He was a real strength in our basketball community, and it's those kind of things that it's easy to take for granted, of the little things that a man like Brian does and what his family does in order to keep the sport strong and keep kids engaged and keep the right message going into kids' ears. University players keep the right message into their ears, making experiences valuable through the game, having people leave the game with a positive feeling in their heart, and then wanting to carry that forward and do the same thing for other players and for other kids, and how that just starts to grow and multiply and do the things that basketball is. It's hard not to be romantic about it, what it does for people. And Brian was one of those catalysts. So he's really going to be missed. He's got a great family, and I know they're going to do a lot to carry on his legacy, and there's going to be other people within the community that do that as well, but he's going to be very missed.
Steve, we've got about a minute. Could you one of the roles that you play in your life is you are, I think the title is Associate General Manager for the Edmonton Stingers. Mm-hmm. Now, the CEBL has announced an extended season this year, but talk real. Unfortunately, we'll have to talk briefly about what your role is doing and working with head coach and GM Jordan Baker in assembling the Stingers roster for the 2025 CEBL season.
Stingers in 30 seconds. What we're going to be doing is obviously trying to build out the roster to remain as competitive and continue to try and drive it forward as much as possible. We were happy with a lot of aspects of our roster. We lose Brody Clark. We lose Adika Peter McNeely. Adika's moved into head coaching role at Nate. Brody made the very strange life choice to move into.
He got a job, right?
Yeah, I don't know what
I don't know what
his dysfunction is, but he
doesn't care.
These guys are moving on, and that leaves a big hole for us at critical Canadian spots. So we're going to have to hit the trail hard in this league. You need good Canadians to continue to be competitive. We're lucky because we have guys like Elijah Miller, Ben Crickey. These are guys that are real corners for us. So we're going to continue to try and build that out, continue to recruit hard in the import area. We have a great home court. The fans in Edmonton have supported the Stingers so well. I've heard a lot of great feedback from people about what the fan experience is like. They love the games, but they love all the other things that go into watching the games at the Expo Center. So we want to put the best product that we can on the floor. We want players to be tough. We want them to have the ability to show their love for the game and their love to compete to the fans through the effort that they give on the court. We want to play collectively. We want to have depth. We want to shoot the ball well. and we want to win the thing. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put our best foot forward of having the best team that we can on the floor, continue to cultivate a culture of strong community ambassadors that represent the game well, but that can also go out there, hit a shot, defend, grab a rebound, and get the crowd pumped up. So that's what we're going to be working for, and I think we're going to get it done.
Great quick summary of the Stingers season coming up. Of course, we'll be talking more about how the Stingers lineup unfolds and comes together as time goes on, as the season looms larger, as it gets closer. I think they kick off in May this year with games, so it's going to be extended deep into August for the championship games. So there's going to be a couple more home games this year, and then hopefully again we're going to have some playoff stuff as well. Well, guys, this has been great. Guys and girls, Lila, Izzy, thanks so much for being here. Steve, thank you. Ryan, it is great to have you back in the Starship Command chair as you are, Captain Picard for us, making it so. So it's been a great start to our return to the airwaves here on Sports 1440. So grateful to be working with Sports 1440, the management people here, all the great radio personalities that they have here, and to be, most importantly, talking about hoops. And to you, everybody listening, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. Have a great weekend. Have a great week on the court and off the court. And we'll look forward to talking to you again next weekend on the Basketball Show on Sports 1440.